Welcome to episode 76 of Tailboard Talk. Today we're talking to Katharine Pope, also known as Kat from Forensics Found, and listen to this bio. I'm going to give you a little background here. Kat's experience includes working as a crime scene specialist for the police, a World War II casualty analyst for the DoD, a forensic anthropologist and death investigator for DMORT, as long as for multiple mid-Atlantic medical examiners' offices. She now works for a federal agency on the missing and unidentified persons crisis and has volunteered with Operation Identification. She's also been happily alcohol-free since February 2021. Now, what does that have to do with firefighters and paramedics? Well, first of all, she understands the demands of it. She is the daughter of a firefighter paramedic and ER nurse turned school nurse, and she also has relatives in the military. We're going hard on some nice topics today. We're talking about her PTSD, her alcoholism, her recovery from that, and what tools she uses today to coach people and catch them upstream before we get ourselves into trouble. It's a real awesome episode. You might feel a little bit attacked during it. I know I did, but it's all for the better. Trust me. So hope you like it. Share it with somebody you think you can use it. Spread it around, and let's get into it. Here comes the intro. Skip forward 30 seconds if you want to get right to the episode. This is the Tailboard Talk podcast, the best health, wellness, and lifestyle resource for the fire service. We're using stories, lessons, and tips from the front lines to give a realistic view of what the job can do to us and how we can make it out alive. I'm Chris Morella, a firefighter since 03, medic since 05, full-time since 08, and promoted to lieutenant in 20. I'm also a personal trainer and strength coach, and I'm here to give you the best information and host the best discussions to make us capable and durable, both on the job and away from it. So grab a heater, steal some fancy creamer from First Shift, and let's go chat. So, one thing I don't like to do, because I personally think it's boring, is like the whole backstory thing. I know that sounds terrible because it's like the reason you're on is because of your story and where it's led you to today, but there's nothing I hate more in a movie when they stop the story to like flash back to childhood, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't care. Like, I know what Spider-Man's doing now. I don't need to know what happened 25 years ago, right? Like, I want to see more jumping off of buildings and stuff. So stop going back.
Are you saying you didn't like the new Star Wars movies?
So, don't mean to break your heart, but I wouldn't even know them if they were in front of me. I'm assuming it's all backstory, though, right?
I also am not a Star Wars person, but
okay.
Patton Oswalt does a really funny stand-up about how like lame those movies are because that's all it is backstory.
Oh yeah, about nobody cares about Darth Vader as a kid or something like that, or nobody. Yeah, I did see that one part stand-up of his. Yeah, but other movies are formatted like that. Like Pulp Fiction is formatted backwards, for lack of a better word. And then one of my favorite movies is Memento. Have you ever seen that?
Oh my gosh, not since college.
I mean, that one's all backwards. And if you miss the first 5 minutes, it's over, And if you miss any 30-second chunk in the middle, it's over too. And so that's cool because that's the entire story is like that. Same with like Guy Ritchie films, I think, have like a lot of back and forth stuff. But the backstory is just agonizing to me. So long-winded way to say I don't not want to hear it, but I want to work it into the conversation a little bit. More focus on what people are doing now. So let's start in the middle. That'll kind of lead us backwards eventually. Tell me about the Forensics Found page and how that got going. I think that'll naturally kind of bring up some backstory stuff.
Yeah. Well, gosh, that's a interesting question. I have been a death investigator for 15 years. And people are always super interested in my job and what I do, from folks at the WWII Royal Farms checkout to people that I work with and their kids. Like they want to work in death investigation and forensics, and they think it's so cool from what they see on TV. So we have this like identity of, the media thinks that we are this certain way. And even other like detectives and firefighters, EMTs, funeral directors, people that we interact with on a daily basis think that death investigators are a certain way. So,
okay, what way is that? What way do you think that I think you are? Because I have a certain way I think about anybody. I have certain ways I think about a lot of people in the public service industry. What do you think the fire department's view of a death investigator is?
I think that you probably think we're disgusting, that we don't that we have no respect for human life, that we just come in and sling the bodies away. No, I
On
don't.
the contrary. So I I am like in love with the forensic side of your job, where I think it's just so cool that you're going to be the person that kind of hopefully puts the puzzle pieces together and can take all these abstract things and has more. I think the thing I'm most jealous of is you have time, right? So when we show up on a scene, it's like, crap, man. If you're waiting more than 15 seconds to make a yes or no or this or that decision, that's a long time, and people start to wonder like if you got it going on, and doubt starts to creep in. So I think I'm super jealous that you guys have more time, and I'm only assuming you have more time. I have no idea how the body reacts after so much time when you start losing available evidence or available workable bodies or whatever. But yeah, to be able to sit down and dissect a scene and really retrace the steps and figure it out is just so appealing to me because we just don't have that much time from our side of the first responders, and you kind of refer to yourself as a last responder, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's my view. I get excited because I'm
Yeah.
like, man, maybe there's a smart person here finally that can tell us what happened, and they know so much cool stuff, and they got all the cool toys, and they get to do all the CSI Miami stuff, and
Totally.
wear the cool sunglasses and carry badges. So that's my view of it. But I could definitely see how you would think that we consider you guys just meat haulers. Yeah.
And that's probably very different than the public sees us, right? Like they think everything's solved in 48 minutes
Oh
and
yeah.
or that everything's solved, period. So Forensics Found kind of came about with me wanting to have more of a community around my people. The fire service has their thin red line brotherhood. Police departments have their thin blue line. And we, last responders, death investigators, we kind of cobbled together a community. I think there's 3,000 medical examiner and coroner's offices out there in the country, and everybody does things a little differently. They're either run by the health department under the city, or they might be run by the state criminal justice system. There's county folks, there's private entities. So everything's kind of different. So I just love kind of being around people who are like me, that are crazy, that are weird, that are really that really love to investigate death. I mean, it's such a taboo subject, and I think I just love it. So that's where my idea for Forensics Found kind of started.
Well, I've never, and obviously it's all a newer medium, but I got to think that there's more shows and podcasts and productions about death more now than ever, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of what I call people groupies, right? They're into the crime com things,
Yeah,
like crime. And honestly, I've always shied away from the media because most of the stuff that comes out in the news about like a death or an investigation, it's generally wrong.
mm.
Um, and so I don't really like to talk to the media. And when people publicize and like make this fantastic story about something maybe awful that's happened, it makes me feel upset. And I don't, so I generally try to shy away from that whole like public aspect of the job.
Sure.
But it's hard because I also want people to have the facts and know more about what forensic pathologists and forensic investigators do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, there's got to be a ton to know that it just never makes it to daylight, right? Because you're doing a massive amount of work behind closed doors, and then people see like a one sentence summary of months and months or years of work, and they're like, "Oh, well, that's not satisfying." Did you see? Did you see? I'm just gonna keep asking you about TV shows. Did you see the documentary on the Cecil Hotel about the woman who climbed up on the roof and fell into the water cistern, and then
Oh, gracious.
you never heard about this?
No, no.
Oh my god! So it was like the epitome of the internet sleuths screwing up everything that the cops were doing, and it was like the craziest story because um, the police and the investigators were basically getting undercut on a daily basis by these groupies, like you call them, to the point where that the police and the investigators were getting accused of like conspiracies and like grouping up against this person and cover-ups and all this crazy stuff. And at the very end, I mean, it's been out for a while, so it's not really a spoiler, and you'll enjoy it anyways. At the very end, the cops are like, okay, here's the whole story. Like, we were giving you bits and pieces along the way because we were investigating it. Here's the entire story. And every single one of those people that was skeptical was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Never mind. And in the meantime, they had ruined like careers and personal livelihoods of people because they started implicating people that were like no way involved with it. And it was the most, I don't want to say hilarious, but the most intense like version of the public screwing up an investigation because of just what we were talking about. All that work's done behind closed doors and very little information comes out, and then the public just runs with these falsities and it goes crazy, and then the mess it creates. So definitely looked up that one. It was very entertaining. Um,
Oh,
very
I try
entertaining.
not to watch those shows or like listen to those podcasts.
You try not to?
I don't. Yeah, I
Oh,
don't.
I mean, I suppose I don't watch Chicago Fire or any of the like ER shows or like any of that stuff.
Very basic. Like I just, they touch stuff like the body with no gloves, or they're putting stuff in plastic bags instead of paper. And I'm like, nah.
Yeah. Okay. So what have you seen? Is there any besides like Dexter is probably the best, right? Is there any portrayal of crime scene, of death investigation, anything like that that's somewhat accurate and also entertaining? Or is it just so far away that you can't have both? You can't have accurate and entertaining.
I got nothing for you.
All
I wish
right.
I did watch The Staircase recently on Netflix.
I did not see that one.
That was hot in the forensic pathology community
Okay.
because there's some focus, and this is the Netflix special, I think, where they actually interview the families and stuff.
Okay.
So I did dig that one.
Okay. All right. All right.
So, yeah, but this is a good topic because I think, especially with what's going on in the media right now with police officers, I feel empathetic towards people who have experienced racism and prejudice. But on the other hand, I feel like we are very frequently only shown one side of the story, and it's causing a huge problem with first responders out there. So, without going into too much detail, it's like I've created this kind of community and tried to bring more people around me who can really share stories vulnerably about stuff they've seen and been through in the death investigation field, not just death investigators, but also like police officers who are detectives and fire chiefs who investigate death and funeral directors. But we all do a kind of a thankless job for our communities. And I think being together around a lot of people who also do that job just gives you the warm and fuzzies and gives you a better chance of doing your job to the best of your ability. Because you're sure as hell not going to get that from the public right now. And very frequently, like, our spouses kind of stop thinking stop relying on us to show up because we're working these crazy hours. Or like, I don't know about you, but when I used to get home from work, I'd be like, don't talk to me, don't touch me. I need like 20 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Number one, I got to get these clothes off. Please don't smell me. I need a shower.
Oh, that's mistake number one. Yeah. So that hasn't happened. Yeah. So I live, right just like a block outside of the city I work for. And so we built in now a time of like, if I get off work at 7, my wife doesn't expect me home until around 8. And that's just a built-in hour of like, I don't have to run calls. I'm all done doing reports. I can take a shower at work. I can change. I can have a cup of coffee, and not have like the looming bell, about to go off. They have to go an alarm. Because once I walk in the house, it's party time. Like, the 3-year-old is already 4 hours into his day, and the 1-year-old is getting going and needs something all the time because she's got teeth coming in. So it's like a koala bear on you. So my wife was ready for me to come home, but time and time again, whenever I leave work and come directly home, it just sets up the rest of the day to be, at least the rest of the morning, to be a complete failure. And none of us are happy. And if you just take that extra little bit of time, it definitely makes a difference in the quality of the first couple hours of the day, for sure.
100%. I love that.
So what drove you, though? Because we're going to get into also the coaching you're providing now and the kind of the resources with alcohol that you're providing and you're into and you've gone through now. Take me just through that a little bit of how that entered and how your journey with that kind of developed, what's going on today.
Yeah, so the community I'm building is kind of centered around this life coaching business, and I decided to get kind of curious about my alcohol use and how that was related to this PTSD diagnosis that I had gotten, and kind of just everything. Like grew up the child of a firefighter, paramedic, and an ER nurse. And so we never were really given these tools of like how to take care of ourselves. First, we always, like, our family was very focused on public service and outreach. I can't think of how many times we stopped like on the side of the road to help in a car fire, or like somebody having a medical event. And my parents weren't drinkers or anything like that, but more frequently than not, when I started to experience kind of burnout at work, I found myself coming home and like drinking. And it's because I never really had those tools to communicate with another person about what I was going through. Even at work, we would do, like, we called them team building exercises, and that would be going down to the bar and having like 2 or 3 drinks before going home.
Right.
And we were, we laughed and joked about like how terrible that, decedent's wallpaper was, or like whatever their family said, but it wasn't really getting at the meat of like, management is really stressful. What can we do to like kind of change our mindset? Or like, gosh, we have no resources whatsoever. We have to do all this stuff with these tiny amounts of time and tools. Like, how's that making you feel? We never talked about that stuff. So I got out of the scene world. I applied for and was accepted to be a federal employee just before COVID hit. And so I started working from home. It was like, 40-hour work week, but I got to kind of choose when I was working.
Nice.
Yeah, life completely changed for me. And I had already been diagnosed with PTSD. I was super burnt out from working like 80 hours a week on call, all the shift work. And, my doctor was like, well, you can either quit your job or start to go to AA, or go to rehab. And I'm like, I'm not doing any of those things. There's got to be another way.
Yeah. You completely derail your life and come to a screeching halt.
Yeah. And when I did find a new job, I just assumed, based on what she had told me, that like everything was going to magically clear up and I'd feel better. And I didn't. Then COVID hit, and I had this like horrible survivor's guilt. All my friends and coworkers that I had left behind were now getting crazy run all over the place and exposed to possible, like, we didn't know back then. We thought we had to wash our grocery bags. So we were terrified that we were going to die.
Yeah.
And, I had pilfered like N95 masks back when I used to be a scene investigator. So I like had 20 or 30, and I ended up doling them out to my friends who are still out on the job. But anyway, during that time, my drinking really ramped up. It did not conclude. And I still, at that point, like, I just didn't have the tools to kind of manage my thoughts around what I think responders, first and last responders, feel. Like all this mounting pressure, potential shame, from whatever, having negative thoughts, anxiety, we don't sleep, so we've got high anxiety, just all this self-doubt, and fear about the future, and criticism. And anyway, I actually ran into, somehow, I think it was like the FaceTubes or the, Instagrams, whatever, they revealed to me this program called This Naked Mind, and they do live alcohol experiments where you stop drinking for 30 days, and every day they send you a video, and there's live coaching, and you learn about alcohol and what it does to you, the scientific stuff around alcohol. And that for me was just a complete game changer. I didn't just stop drinking immediately. I had some, what they call data points during that month. So it's an experiment, right? So when you're doing a science experiment, you gather data. And when you have what like traditional AA folks call as a relapse, that's actually useful information to figure out, okay, what the heck was I doing right before I started drinking to make me feel like I needed to numb out again?
Okay.
Yeah, so it was really cool. It was an informative, month. And I ended up doing the live alcohol experiment a couple more times. And I started to really get curious. That was like the one big domino that kind of fell to help me really start to question all of my all of my thoughts and emotions, right? So we have thoughts, right? Like I've seen so many dead babies and dead kids in my career, my 15-year career. And I had started to see things in my kids that I did not like. Or I would think, like, my husband was reversing out of the driveway one day and my kids are like running alongside, like, bye, daddy. And my mind goes immediately to, holy crap, they're going to fall and go underneath the wheels and they'll be squished and dead. And it's awful.
Right.
And my heart starts racing and, you know, I start sweating and I scream and yell and freak out. Those thoughts, like those emotions, those feelings that we have because we've seen that stuff, is not stoppable, right? We're not going to stop that.
Right.
What we do with that input and that stimulus is totally under our control, right? It is our responsibility to kind of explain to ourselves and to the people we love, like, hey, I've had this experience. I feel this way when this happens. Can you please ... Like, you know, don't ever do that again.
Right.
And then choose a way to like really respond instead of reacting. Like, we're responders, right? Let's respond thoughtfully and in a way that like kind of empowers us and turns all the shit, all the anxiety, all the shame, all the regret into something that's like more exciting and curious based. Like I ask questions now about my kids. And anyway, I ended up getting a certification in life coaching because I think this ability to now like really question my thoughts and like these habits that I ended up having, which one of them was alcohol. But this is super useful for folks in our field because we kind of just like, at least for me, I was kind of floating through this job with all this input, and I never really questioned my output. I just like showed up to work and I did the 8-hour shift. And then I also was on call for, you know, like 24 hours straight. And then I thought, okay, well now I'm done. I'm going to drink and numb out and then just do it all over again next week. And those behaviors are actually well within my control if I just kind of start questioning them and then turning them around.
So where did you start? I think you hit it real quick, but when did you start actually developing and get exposed to these tools? So you did the alcohol experiments, right, a few times, and then was it when you started learning about life coaching that you got these tools, or did you learn them and then think, oh, I like this stuff, I want to go on the other side of it and now become a life coach because of it?
Yeah, in the live alcohol experiment, they use these tactics. So one of them is called the ACT technique. And so when I learned, I'll explain it, but when I learned those tactics, I was like, oh my gosh, I can apply this to way more than just my drinking. I can apply this to like my anger with my kids. You know, with my husband, like, gosh, I used to drink at my husband whenever he pissed me off. I'm like, I'll show you.
Nice. That's a good way of putting it. I like that. Drink at someone. Nice.
But it turns out I really love him. We've been together since the first week of, yeah, I know, right?
Surprise, yeah.
We've been together. We met the first week of college. It was like the world's worst one night stand. I couldn't get rid of him after.
Nice. Sometimes we cling on, man. I got a similar story with my wife, and sometimes you just latch on, and good luck because we're on for the long haul, whether you like it or not. So,
22 years, man. It's
awesome. So go back to what the tool was you just said.
Yeah. So the ACT technique is really cool. It's when you, they probably teach something similar to this in medicine, right? Is like you have to actually be aware of what the injury is first. So you acknowledge your thought. And like I said, our thoughts, our emotions are kind of just things. Emotions are just signposts. They're not our world around us, right? They're not like thrust upon us. Emotions are actually our experience and our knowledge and our what we kind of translate our thoughts to mean, right? So we can change those things. We just have to acknowledge them first. So like you write down a thought like, oh, my kids I have this thought when I come home from work, my kids have just trashed the house and that means that they hate me. They don't give a shit about the house being clean. They obviously don't respect me. It's a mess in here. And then so previous cat would have come home and started like spite cleaning the house and like throwing stuff around. They could clearly hear me.
Right. Right.
And maybe they'd finally feel bad and learn something.
Yeah.
Yeah, how great does that work?
Never. Never. I've thrown
So
so many things in my life with zero positive result.
I know
Yeah.
it's sad because you keep doing it. You think it's going to change, but it never does.
Yeah.
So the C stands for clarify, and you're asking yourself, like, how does that thought make me feel, and how does it make me behave? So, like, if we use this example about, my kids don't respect me because of this evidence. My house is a trashed mess. That makes me feel really crummy that my kids don't respect me, and it makes me behave in a way that is kind of shameful, right? Like I'm throwing stuff around,
Mm-hmm.
acting like a little child, having a temper tantrum. So then you go to the next step, which is turnaround. And it's important to know, like, we're not going to completely turn around all of our thoughts immediately, right? Like that can create a lot of toxic positivity.
Right.
I'm not like running around being like sunshine and rainbows now. There's still a lot of shit in the world, right? And I use this technique all the time on my thoughts, but so you kind of can take like ladder steps up, right? So instead of the turnaround is like my kids don't respect me, a turnaround would be my kids do respect me. Okay, maybe I'm not ready for that yet, but I could say I'm learning to respect me.
Mm.
And if I can say like a respectful thing that people do is like teach their kids how to keep a clean house. Or maybe a respectful thing to do would be ask my kids, hey, did you guys have a fun day? Would you like to help me clean up the house now?
Right. Right.
Because honestly, the proof of a dirty house is like you've got kids in your house that are comfortable, they're safe, they're well kept,
Right.
and they're like having a good time. And then I can come in now from a hard day at work and do something fun with them together. Like maybe we can make a game out of cleaning up.
Sure.
And me learning to respect myself and not acting like a little toddler is way empowering and makes me feel really good. And at this point now, like I can come home and they're excited to see me. They recognize when I walk through the door and we do this thing together. And it doesn't take very long and I don't have to break anything to get
Yeah.
what I want.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is, I mean, it's hitting home for me. It's hitting home for me because of a few reasons. We have this 3-year-old mutant in our house right now, and it is so much easier just to yell at him, or make him do something like, "No, you're not having a snack until you do this." Such an easier thing to do to get compliance, but we're not really accomplishing much, right? And so that's a constant struggle in our house of like, okay, what are we actually trying to do here, and is this the best way to do it? And we do an okay job at recognizing that, but man, it's a struggle. It's a conscious thought every time, right? It's not on autopilot yet.
Yeah, and that's another thing I kind of learned about when I stopped drinking alcohol and then stuck to it was like, so Americans and probably just humans really want there to be a quick switch in
Mm.
life, right? Like, where's the easy button? And there's not one. When we plant a seed and accomplish something, grow something from a seed up into a beautiful flower, like we have done this thing and we can be proud of it. And yes, it would be a lot easier to scream at my kids and then clean up the mess myself. But now that we're doing this thing together, life in general is like it does take a little bit more time, but I'm more proud of that now than I was just like come home, do the thing, stew in my own shit, drink the bottle of wine, whatever, not
Yeah.
work out. I mean, working out is a good example too, right? It's so much easier just to skip it.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Definitely. Well, and I don't want to keep belaboring the point or harping on it, but the time aspect of this is like, it's one of the most difficult parts of beginning either, like you're saying, a coaching session or a therapy session or something like that, because it took me the longest time, and it's another active conscious thought. It's not on autopilot yet, and still don't have it totally conceptualized, but just the fundamental basis of separating your thoughts and emotions from who you are
Yeah.
is just the hardest thing for me, because it's always like, well, this is how I feel, so this is a reflection of who I am, right? Or the way I act is who I am, and that's always kind of been not instilled upon us, but like If you do bad things, you're a bad person. And if you do good things, you're a good person. And that kind of trickles down to everyday tasks of like, if you get frustrated, I'm frustrated now, not I'm feeling frustrated. So it's so difficult to hash that out as a starting point. I just don't want to give any false illusions. Like that took me the greater part of 6 months to actually, and I had to like draw diagrams of a brain and where my mind is and where my my thinking part of my brain is, and like these two things are input to the manager, and I'm the manager, but these two things are just telling me how they think I should feel or what they think I should do. It was excruciating. But at least I have a little bit of concept of it, so it makes some stuff easier, right? But I don't want that to be a false illusion of people that are going to start this journey and just upon hearing the concepts can't pick it up, because it's more difficult than that, but it's far more valuable than that too.
Yeah, one of the things I work with in the very beginning with clients is just getting them comfortable with vulnerability at all. And like most of the dudes that frequently they're dudes, getting them to be vulnerable. And obviously, that being vulnerable, so that is like sharing things that may feel icky or a little too personal.
Yeah.
Getting them to share that is not always like with me or with their spouse, may not be a thing that happens. And so we practice what's called mindful decontamination. And it's like at the very beginning, just doing like what you said, is getting out a piece of paper and a pen and just writing it down and getting it out of your brain, and really starting just to recognize, like, take a second instead of instant reaction, taking a second and being like, where do I feel this in my body? What is it like?
That was another very difficult one.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That was just, I was like, I don't know. Everything hurts. Like, I don't know. What do you want me? My knee? What are we doing here? Oh, that was a terrible one for me.
Well, just like giving names or words or anything, like giving it a damn color, something that just gets it out of your brain and onto a piece of paper to talk about. There's research that proves that 80% of our thoughts are repeats from the day before. So when we start to identify these thoughts, and like for me, it was like should. I said should in my brain to myself constantly all day long. I started making a little tally mark for the first like week that I was starting to do this. Every time I said, well, I should feel this way, or I should be doing this thing.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like, well, who says I should be whatever? Who says I should be mommy, June Cleaver, and that I have to do or look or be a certain way? And then, getting clients or getting myself, this is a never ending journey for me too. Just getting folks to realize that you are not your thoughts and emotions, that they are under your control, and that you can kind of turn them around. The actual so there's 3 layers of emotions. The first layer is called affect, and that's the actual feeling that you have. So like your tummy rumbles and you're hungry, or you feel anxiety and you might sweat or your hands might shake. Well, it turns out that the same exact affect, the same exact like body response for anxiety is anticipation. If you've got somebody that's out there, like maybe it's a rookie on your fire team, fire squad. I'm not using the right word.
Either one. Fire hero group, whatever you want to call it.
Hero group.
Yeah.
So, when you've got a new guy out there on the rig doing the things, he may feel this like affect of like palms sweaty, shaking, nervousness. And he is going to the second layer of emotion, which is he's giving like a meaning to that affect. And he's saying, I'm scared, I'm nervous, instead of choosing to say, I'm excited, I have anticipation for going on my first call.
Right.
And it's kind of like being able to get folks to realize, like, all right, you have this feeling in your body. What are you going to make it mean? And then you can start to like change your feelings up, which is super empowering and exciting. And that third layer of affect is actually like creating, I can't remember the name, of course, right now, but actually creating like a should statement around it. Like, oh, you shouldn't feel excited about going on a call because it means somebody's house is burning down. Or you shouldn't be excited. You should be nervous because this is your first time and you're going to screw it up because you screw everything up.
Right.
But all that's under our control.
Those are very. I mean, they're extremely at the surface level. It's like, oh, I get it. And then, man, when you start to dig in, it's a whole world underneath there that can scare a lot of people off, right? Um, but I think the availability of it is also very intriguing for people because right off the bat, you can touch on two or three points that everybody thinks about and everybody has in their head, but nobody openly discusses that frequently. And so, just by going over those handful of things that you did, I mean, it hit home for me in several areas. Like I said, I'm sure
Nice.
that a couple of people are just picking apart and feeling very attacked right now, which is awesome, which I'm all about, right? Because why not? Um, but I want to get back to real quick because I think this is a good place to kind of go into with alcohol. You're completely alcohol free, right?
I am.
And but you said your husband drinks.
He does.
Okay, so give me a quick little rundown because we had a conversation earlier, not a conversation, but um, where do you stand on like moderation or even specifically we talked a little bit about non-alcoholic beer, right? So some sort of alternative that mimics it but doesn't quite give you the alcohol of it. I mean, where does that all fit into kind of how you operate?
Yeah, I mean, for me, in my experience, dropping the booze was like I said, the one big domino that fell that allowed me to stick to my workout routines, to eat healthfully all the time,
Mm-hmm.
consistently, to start to get curious about my thoughts and then like stick with them. Because when I was drinking, I was one of those like, once I have one, the bottle's gone,
Yeah.
and that's not true for everybody, right? My husband can very easily have his one scotch, and then not have scotch again for a couple days, and
Right.
that's fine for him. But um, anyway, I think I think there's a lot of buzzwords and bullshit out there around alcohol use. Big Booze is a legit company, a thing that
Oh yeah. It's monstrous. Yeah.
they want you to drink alcohol. They want you to do it responsibly, but what the heck does that even mean?
Yeah.
Alcohol, every time you drink, there is no safe amount of alcohol to drink. Every time someone drinks alcohol, your a possibility of getting cancer increases 15%.
Hmm.
There is no like, it disrupts sleep, it messes with your skin, it dehydrates you. And when you have one drink, you get, and this is what I was always chasing, you get that like buzz feeling, right? Your
Yeah.
BAC goes up
Mm-hmm.
for 20 minutes. That is like researched, documented, average. Obviously, some people are a little different. But then your BAC plummets because of the chemicals in your brain and the things that alcohol does. It's both a depressant and a stimulant. So then your BAC goes down for 2 to 3 hours. And for me, if you ask Kat back when she was drinking, like, what do after work, what are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? And I'd be like, nah, had a pretty good day, like, had a couple cases, they were interesting. I'm really tired. It's the end of the week. I'm a 6. I go home and have my glass of wine, one glass of wine, and I'm like, I'm feeling like a 7 now, 7 or 8,
Yeah.
not too shabby. And then 9 p.m. comes around. It's a Thursday, so I've got to go back to work the next day or something. And I've had one glass of wine, but it's been an hour, and I'm trying not to have another glass because I have to get up early. I've got yoga in the morning. If you asked me what I felt like then, I'd be like, I'm a 4.
Hmm.
I'm way below this. And then if I have a second glass of wine, I can maybe get up to a 5. But I'm never going to be back at that baseline like 6 or 7 that
Hmm.
I was feeling like when I first came home. And so, anyway, it's kind of a long story too. I think that we've been fed a lot of stories about like moderation and alcoholism, and relapse and these buzzwords. You have to admit that you're powerless to be able to get sober. Now, all of that stuff may not be true for you. It may be true for a lot of people. And I think like AA is amazing. It creates an amazing community for people to feel empowered to stop drinking. But for some people, that sort of thing doesn't work. And, once I started to really learn the science and the tools and tactics to take control of my behaviors and my beliefs, that's when I started to really dig in and think like, well, moderation probably isn't for me. And I tested it for sure. Like I tried that out. It didn't work.
Yeah.
Ask me how I know. But, like because my husband never really attached any sort of deeper meaning into, he wasn't using booze to kind of fulfill unmet needs.
Hmm.
He can keep drinking. But for me, it was like that was the thing I had to have after work. That was the thing I had to have to like decompress from a hard day.
Sure.
So anyway, I can't even remember your actual question at this point.
Who knows, man? Who knows? I'm enjoying this. I mean, I really like what you're saying because it's what I preach a lot. It's what my, I hope that my guests and Kurt and Annette preach a lot of. Like, there's a lot of different principles out there, and there's a lot of different people saying a lot of different stuff and selling a lot of different stuff. But you got to figure out what works for you.
For you, yeah.
And we talked briefly about when I posted a picture of the non-alcoholic beer, and that always gets a lot of questions, because people are surprisingly more interested about that than I thought. And so every time I post a picture of any kind of non-alcoholic beer, I get a couple like, why do you do that? Like, what's the point? What's the point of that? Does it taste, is it the same? All that stuff. And I'm honest. I tell them like, listen, this is a substitute that does a few things for me. Drinking beer is a ritual for me. Like it's not an everyday ritual. But after hockey, after a bike ride, hanging out with people, doing yard work, like it's something that's just kind of come along for the ride with me, right? It also makes me very sleepy. So if I can have basically a flavored water in the middle of the day and then still be able to work out later or cut the grass or play with the kids, and it gives me that feeling of that ritual or scratches that itch of like, okay, I'm drinking beer and that's something I enjoy doing associated with these things. I'm down for it. Like I'm down for it. And I tell them it's just like any other food substitute. Like cauliflower rice isn't rice. Okay. Cauliflower rice is just really tiny, stupid cauliflower. But when you compare it to rice, it's a letdown. 10 out of 10 times, right? If you say this isn't cauliflower rice, this is riced cauliflower. It's not meant to be compared to rice. It's its own thing. You're like, oh, it's not bad. I can flavor this with other stuff, Same thing with non-alcoholic beer. If you're going to compare it to your favorite microbrew or whatever, you're going to be disappointed. If you consider it like, hey, this will scratch the itch and I can still be functioning and not hurt myself, it's going to be great, And that's what works for me. And I appreciate you having that open mind and that more realistic view of how this all works of like, yeah, maybe that keeps me from drinking, a 6-pack of beer. If I can have one non-alcoholic one and then feel good about it, that's more valuable than just saying no beer or no beer substitutes at all and then torture myself.
For sure. And that's another thing that I found so freeing of the program that I went through, This Naked Mind, was that I did not finish that program feeling like deprived or that I was using white knuckling willpower to stop drinking. Like I don't miss drinking. I don't go to a party and be like, damn, what a sad life I lead.
Such a nerd, such a square.
Nerd.
Yeah.
I am always very thankful that I did not drink, and I'm thankful that I'm not drinking. I don't miss the taste of wine. Like I did have a sip of it like a year ago. It was so sweet. I don't miss that. It's not worth it. I can play the tape forward and be like, well, this will lead to just the worst week of my life.
Yeah, been down this road before.
Nope.
So let's play the tape forward a little bit. You got some stuff coming up. You've got some stuff you're launching, some coaching you're doing. What are you into now? Where can people kind of get in contact with you or see what you're doing?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So my website, Forensics Found, is kind of the landing place for this community. I've got Facebook groups and Instagram where I kind of post. I'm sharing my story, so don't read it because you don't like stories. But
I can read it. It's like one paragraph at a time. I'm down with it, and they're small chapters. They're very interesting, and I can control when I want to read them or not. You're not thrusting me back through time to watch your story.
There you go. So that's going to be called Life Stories of a Last Responder or a Death Investigator. I haven't decided yet. And I'm launching a program called the Burnout Protocol, which will kind of take folks through 4 steps or 5 steps. I haven't figured that one out yet, but it should be coming out in a couple weeks. And I'm also doing a little webinar, a free webinar on August 4th that will talk to, that I'll share my story and I'll talk to people about their mindsets and kind of give them a chance to hear someone else with their experience share their experience, so that possibly somebody else in my background, in my field, won't feel alone, and that it's okay to like drink the non-alcoholic beer. You don't have to quit alcohol completely to want to get healthier, or you don't have to work out, lift weights for an hour every day to want to feel better. But there are other people who have been through this path before. There are so many amazing resources for firefighters and law enforcement surrounding suicide, but I want to be one of the people that get at those people way before we have to have that conversation. I think like we can all live a way more fulfilling life and like be happier and be better at our jobs. We have really hard jobs, right? We can be way better at them when we're living. We don't have to wait till like it gets so horrible that we're bums under the overpass drinking out of a bag, or 400 pounds and we can't go out to our calls anymore. All of those things, or suicidal.
Well, I can tell you that, I follow a decent amount of inspirational people on social media, and they're fun to look at and fun to watch do silly stuff. But by far, the most impactful people are the ones who are doing what you're doing and what we're trying to do here, and what Annette Zapp is trying to do, and what so many people are trying to do, which is go upstream and grab people before they fall in, right? And by far, the most impactful thing you can do. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and this was awesome. This was such a fun conversation, and I'm going to send you the link for that documentary, and you can force yourself to
for you.
Yeah, you can pretend to watch it and just tell me how good it was, so I feel good about myself, and I'll never ask you about it again. How about that? One more time, rattle off your contact stuff, your social handles, and whatever email stuff like that, and we'll cut you loose.
Sure. My website is forensicsfound.com. My Instagram is forensicsfound, and also Responders Last Call. So that's kind of the alcohol focused one. Forensics Found is for general health, wellness, mindset stuff. And the Facebook, I have groups of the same names. So awesome. I hope to see you guys there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. I'm sure we'll talk again, because I'm excited to see where all your programs go and how this thing grows, and where you're going. This is awesome. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right.